So he shot through, and I threw a remark at the ticket collector about what platform, and I got the stream of Dutch come back at me, and we should call about one word. So I come back and I explained to him in English. He said, but you speak good Dutch. I said, it's only a little, it's not very good. And we got on the train, and this gentleman came round, ticket collector, and he said, by the way, did you know you're sitting in first class? And I said, no, I didn't, but I didn't bother to look. He said, well, you are. I said, oh, what? So I'll get up and move to the next. He said, no, sit where you are and sit and talk to me. And we did.
Nice. Years ago, I went there with my mum and dad and my sister, and my dad got a car parking ticket in Amsterdam, and he went to the police station to say, I've got a car parking ticket, how do I pay? And they just said, you English? And they said, yeah. I said, just go.
Really?
Just leave it. Yeah, just go.
Wow.
That's another one. You reminded me of something else. I had friends who lived in The Hague, or Den Haag, as they call it.
Right.
And he'd been in the Dutch Merchant Navy during the Second War. And they were coming back from overseas just as the war broke out. So the skipper called them all together and he said, look lads, we've got two choices. We go back home and we get conscripted into working for the Germans, or we head for Britain. What do you want? Britain.
Yeah.
So, that was a point of another story. I can't remember what it was now. Too many memories come back at the same time.
Yeah.
Stuff I hadn't thought about for years, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're having. It's lovely to have this conversation and to hear you go back over those memories and find them.
On and on and on. Yeah.
So, where else did you like to travel, apart from Amsterdam?
Well, the furthest I got was South America.
Okay.
Now, British BEA didn't fly to South America. No chance of them, especially with the aeroplanes, because we'd never make it. But it was the early days of this as yet invisible murderer.
Okay.
And I was told that, was talking to the staff, I could apply to Varig, which is a Brazilian airline, which I did, and it was granted. And I don't know why, maybe I can be too methodical a person, I don't know. I went down to the local library and I got hold of a book about Brazil, particularly on travel regulation, Businessman's Guide to Brazil. And by golly, am I glad I did. Because my friend was an American officer stationed in Paraguay. And Paraguay and Brazil hate each other. They really do. One side doesn't like the other. Anyway, I arrived at Rio, and I'm in transit to domestic, and stepped up to the customs officer. Little booth, like only one guy. But there was another one outside which I didn't know about. So he said, where are you going? He spoke English at least, because I don't speak. Portuguese is the language there. He said, oh, you can't fly to there. I said, why is that? He said, you need a visa. I said, no, you don't need a visa. Your own regulations say that if I'm in transit, I don't need it. And this hot head pops up from the other side. So also said in English, he's quite right, on you go, lad. I thought, no, if I hadn't have read that book, I wouldn't have known, and I'd found myself back on the next plane back home. Anyway, we got down to Asunción, as the capital of Paraguay, and the customs officer went through me with a fine-tooth comb. I thought, what's the matter? It's a tin pot little country. And they should have taken me to the cleaners. So my American friend was meeting me the other side, and his first words were, he said, "Did the customs ever go at you?" I said, "No." He said, "Don't pay any attention to them." He said, "This is like Spain in the 30s and the 40s."
Yeah.
He said, "This is a very poor country. They're not out to catch you smuggling anything. They just want to see what you've got." And that was illustrated a couple of days later because it was a Sunday. And he said, "Would you like to go to church?" I said, "Actually, I would, George." He said, "Right." So hop in the car and off we went. And I saw this, like a sand lorry, you know, boxed
Yeah.
in sand lorry.
Yeah.
But loads of people standing up in it, which you wouldn't allow in this country.
Mm.
Health and safety, you'd have a heart attack.
Yeah.
I said, "What's all that about, George?" He said, "That Pat is a local bus.
Okay.
They're all going to church, but they can't afford the fare. So what they do is the driver has a collection, and whatever he's got, that's, you know,
Okay.
that's fine." God, we wouldn't allow it in our country, but never mind, we're not in our country
Right.
anymore. I'd to America quite a few times. I saw very little of America, to be honest. Oh, story, there hangs a story as well. As a one time, I wasn't thorough in checking. I just spoke to people I knew. They assured me everything was all right, and that when you get to your state, you produce your ticket and you get a concession with the other company. Doesn't work that way, as I found out. And this young man, I must admit, he did everything he could, except stand on his head and try and get me on. He said, "You got an office in New York?" I said, "Yeah, down on 6th Avenue. So he phoned them up, and he must have been on that phone a good half an hour. And he knew his rules and regulations because he was quoting them. And he hung up with a baffled look in his face. He said, "They don't want to know." I said, "I told you they don't want to know.
Okay.
Unless you've got it in black and white and signed by God, you won't get it."
So what happened? What happened?
Well, there's only one. He said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "That flight that come in is leaving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm going to be on it." He said, "You can't do that." I said, "I don't have any choice." And we should lead me to another story. We were in, I can't remember what year it was. We were only allowed to take so much foreign country,
Okay.
of British currency overseas, about £50 or something like that. So I said, "No, I'm sorry, I've got to go back to London." I said, "Point me in the direction of the telephones." So I phoned my friend. He was based at Port Sam Houston in Port Sam something or other in Houston, Texas. "Oh, great!" He said, "No, looking out for you. We wait for you on the next plane." I said, "I'm sorry, George, I've got bad news. It's not going to happen." He said, "Why? What happened?" I said, "Well, I was relying on courtesy travel on another airline and I didn't get it. And I don't have enough money to go travelling around." So he had a pop for a minute. He said, "Well, how much do you need, Pat?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Right." He said, I can't remember the name of the airline. He said, "Go to them, I'll be in touch, and I'll pay for your ticket."
Okay.
This is a man who'd never met me.
Blimey.
We were pen friends on badges.
Mhm.
So I arrived there and they made a great big fuss of me and all the rest of it. And I got back to England. I was living in Hayes in Middlesex in those days. I went straight round to Barclays Bank. I explained the situation. Before I knew who it was, I had about 5 of them. And they're all looking at each other and looking at me and I said, "God," I felt like I committed murder. "What did you spend this money on?
Oh,
Why
gosh.
did you go to the blah, 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 blah?" I said, "Look," I thought quickly off the top of my head. I said, "Look, I'm a military historian," which I was. I said, "We went to a museum called the D. Whitty Museum to help them sort out their badge collection, and I can prove it. The museum can prove it. My colleague can prove it. Oh, that's a different matter. Blah, 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 blah. I said, look, all I want is a simple answer. When that check comes in from the United States, will you meet it or not? Oh, yes, no problem. I said, thank you, gentlemen, good morning. And I swarmed off. And I telling George about it on the phone, and he said, and what would you have done if they said they wouldn't meet the check? I said, well, George, you would have gotten a letter every day with some British currency on it till I get paid. Because I've never borrowed money in my life, but apart from a house mortgage. I said, I've never borrowed money in my life, and I certainly wouldn't renege on it when it does happen. Unfortunately, him and I, and his lady, his wife, who was American Indian, I can't remember which tribe now. He's a member of the same collecting society I am, but they don't publish the names and addresses anymore for security reasons. I know for a fact one gentleman retired as a full-blown general, so and they don't want that getting round the wrong places. So what I've got to do is I've got to get in touch with the editor who lives in London and have him forwarded. That I will do. But I've been saying that for about a fortnight and haven't got round to it yet.
Tell us a little bit about being a military historian. How did that start? And the badges?
I think it all started off. Oh, badges is easy because when I was in the Corps, I sent to the depot, which was in Chester in those days. And you've done, I was a year at signal school. I don't think it's that long now, but it was a year of training. And when you're a trained man and you get sent to a depot regiment, technically you don't exist.
Okay.
Gardening for you, coal yard for you, so and so. That's the way it goes. I got assigned to the quartermaster stores, and what you had to do, bearing in mind it's a depot regiment, so you got heaps of men coming from England, going overseas, and you got heaps of men coming back from overseas to be demobbed, handing your uniform or their kit. As for the clothing angle, all badges, formation signs, rank badges, trade badges are all removed.
Okay.
And then they go to the cleaners and the dry clean, and then they're issued to recruits.